The Hunchback of Notre Dame may be one of Disney's most overlooked films. Growing up, I remembered it as the weird movie nobody really talked about. Coming at the end of Disney's Renaissance certainly didn't help, but upon my latest rewatch, I realized I hadn't actually understood it. Because this isn't just an underrated Disney movie. From its breathtaking animation and incredible soundtrack to its unforgettable characters and deeper mature themes, I think it's one of Disney's boldest films. But what surprised me most wasn't how well it was made, it was how much more I understood it as an adult. The first thing that stood out to me was the sheer scale of this movie. The shots of Paris overhead and through the city makes it feel alive. Every time the camera pans out over Paris, I notice something new. The city feels alive because there's so much detail packed into every frame. I can't help but stop and admire it. Much of these breathtaking backgrounds were created using traditional matte paintings rather than modern digital tools, which makes the artistry even more impressive. The backgrounds are incredibly detailed and make the city feel massive, and that visual scale complements the story. Quasimodo lives in this enormous cathedral overlooking an equally enormous city he isn't allowed to be a part of. The animation constantly reminds you just how isolated he really is. The soundtrack is one of the biggest reasons this movie stands out for me. It goes toe to toe with whatever Disney film you want to throw in front of it. The music gives every scene that much more emotional weight. The opening sequence of the bells of Notre Dame demands your attention and is able to tell an entire story by its end. The song's final question of who is the monster and who is the man sets the foundation for the entire movie up to the end when it ties it all back together. Then, of course, there's Heaven's Light slash Hellfire, which is the perfect way to contrast our protagonist and villain. This song is intense, and Hellfire is arguably the greatest villain song there is. We see Quasimodo and Frollo's view on Esmeralda and their concept of love. Quasimodo responds with compassion, sacrifice, and humility, while Frollo responds with lust, control, and hatred. I will dive deeper into both of these characters and their dynamic later in the video, but this song is one of Disney's strongest examples of musical storytelling in any film. Then there's my personal favorite song of the film, and one of my favorites ever, regardless of genre, Out There. This is Quasimodo's I Want song, but unlike many other Disney protagonists, his dream isn't to become someone extraordinary, it's just to be treated like everyone else. That simplicity is what makes the song so powerful. For a few minutes, we're invited to see the world through Quasimodo's eyes. The reason Out There hits me so hard isn't because it's beautifully written, it's because I understand why Quasimodo sings it. And that's where this movie stopped being just another Disney film for me. It became a story about fear, control, and believing someone else's version of who you are. Frollo spends Quasimodo's entire life convincing him the outside world will reject him, that he's a monster, that the bell tower is the only place he'll ever belong. Most importantly, he convinces Quasimodo that he's the only person who truly understands him. That's why the scene immediately after Out There hits so hard. The gargoyles challenge Quasimodo with an idea that extends far beyond the movie itself. Laverne says, life's not a spectator sport. If watching is all you're going to do, then you're going to watch your life go by without you. That line hits me like a brick because I too have watched life pass me by due to fear of judgment. Throughout the film, Frollo passes judgment on everyone else while refusing to take responsibility for himself. No matter what you say or do, you are wrong and he is right. What makes Frollo so frightening is that people like him exist. They convince others they're worthless, that no one else will love them, and eventually their victims begin to believe it. I've also felt what it's like to believe someone else's opinion of you becomes your own, to believe you're not good enough, to fear judgment so much that you stop yourself from living. And Quasimodo isn't the only person Frollo tries to control. The moment Esmeralda refuses to submit to him, she becomes his next target. Esmeralda changes everything. She sees humanity in Quasimodo before anyone else does, and by refusing to fear Frollo, she exposes exactly who he is. That's what makes Hellfire so disturbing. Frollo doesn't take responsibility for his own desires. Instead, he blames Esmeralda for tempting him and convinces himself that destroying her is somehow righteous. And that's what makes Frollo even more terrifying. His manipulation doesn't stop with Quasimodo, it extends to his own faith. Throughout the film, Frollo treats God less like someone he follows and more like someone who validates him. He twists religion into a shield for his own pride and cruelty. Every evil act he commits is justified because, in his mind, he's carrying out God's will. What struck me after becoming a Christian is that Christianity calls us to recognize our own sin before condemning everyone else. Frollo does the exact opposite. Religion isn't about proving you're more righteous than everyone else, it's about recognizing your own need for grace. And that's ultimately why this movie means so much more to me today than it ever did growing up. As a kid, I thought The Hunchback of Notre Dame was just a darker Disney movie with incredible music and beautiful animation. As an adult, I realize it's really a story about fear, shame, manipulation, and choosing whether you'll let someone else define who you are. The animation isn't just beautiful, it makes Quasimodo's isolation feel enormous. The soundtrack doesn't just sound incredible, it tells the emotional story before the characters ever say a word. And the relationship between Quasimodo and Frollo isn't just one of Disney's best hero villain dynamics, it's a reminder of what happens when fear and control replace truth and compassion. Maybe that's why this movie has stayed with me for so many years. Not because it has the best songs or the best villain, although it certainly has both, but because it challenged me to see parts of myself I didn't even realize were there. Quasimodo's story isn't just about escaping a tower, it's about finally believing that your worth isn't determined by the loudest voice telling you who you are. It's about stepping out into the world anyway. That's why I think Hunchback of Notre Dame isn't just one of Disney's most underrated films, it's one of its most meaningful. I'd love to know what Disney movie has hit you differently as an adult. Please let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video and would like to see more movie discussions like this, please consider liking the video and subscribing. It would help the channel grow, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. And if you haven't revisited Hunchback since you were a kid, I really think it's worth another shot. Until next time, I'm the Wandering Tooke, and thanks for watching.